But you forget, replied Debray, laughing, that we are Franks by name and Franks by nature, as King Charles said, and that the moment she puts her foot in France, your slave becomes free. Who will tell her? The first person who sees her. She only speaks Romaic. That is different. But at least we shall see her, said Beauchamp. Or do you keep eunuchs as well as mutes? Oh, no, replied Monte Cristo. I do not carry brutalism so far. Everyone who surrounds me is free to quit me, and when they leave me will no longer have any need of me or anyone else. It is for that reason, perhaps, that they do not quit me. They had long since passed to dessert and cigars. My dear Albert, said Debray, rising, it is 2:30. Your guest is charming, but you leave the best company to go into the worst sometimes. I must return to the minister's. I will tell him of the Count, and we shall soon know who he is. Take care, returned Albert. No one has been able to accomplish that. Oh, we have 3 millions for our police. It is true they are almost always spent beforehand, but no matter. We shall still have 50,000 francs to spend for this purpose. And when you know, will you tell me? I promise you. Au revoir, Albert. Gentlemen, good morning. As he left the room, Debray called out loudly, My carriage! Bravo, said Beauchamp to Albert. I shall not go to the chamber, but I have something better to offer my readers than a speech of Monsieur Danglars. For heaven's sake, Beauchamp, returned Morcerf, do not deprive me of the merit of introducing him everywhere. Is he not peculiar? He is more than that, replied Chateau Renaud. He is one of the most extraordinary men I ever saw in my life. Are you coming, Morrel? Directly. I've given my card to the Count, who has promised to pay us a visit at Rue Meslay, number 14. Be sure I shall not fail to do so, returned the Count, bowing. And Maximilien Morrel left the room with the Baron de Chateau Renaud, leaving Monte Cristo alone with Morcerf. Wow. So many twists and turns in today's conclusion of this conversation. I made a little artistic choice here, because Dumas doesn't really give us any description, but a lot of what they're saying here, particularly Debray to Albert, feels like it's kind of an aside where Dante can't hear as he's getting up to leave and saying that he's going to tell the court of the Count, etc., and Albert and Beauchamp talking off to the side, I think, as Beauchamp saying he's not going to go to the chamber, but that he has a newer and better story to actually write about Dante instead. And more importantly, let's read this line specifically. I have something better to offer my readers than a speech of Monsieur Danglars. So Dante, once again, without himself knowing or Danglars knowing, one-upping Danglars. I mean, it's kind of an interesting way to bring back that rivalry, or at least subconsciously kind of plant in our heads, oh yeah, there's this long-standing feud between these two men. Chateau Renaud and Maximilien leave, but Maximilien is giving his card the way that Albert gave his card to Dante, saying that Dante is going to pay him a visit at Rue Meslay, number 14. Doesn't give a date, doesn't give a time, so we don't have that to necessarily look forward to. And that last line is almost foreboding, isn't it? Maximilien and Chateau Renaud left the room, leaving Monte Cristo alone with Morcerf. These two men alone for the first time. I mean, even Franz was there before. So what will Dante have to say to Albert once they are alone? Is this going to be his first salvo into getting into the house to meet Fernand? Maybe. Is Fernand even home? And also, I don't know where we're heading next. I mean, this seems like we're just going to continue with the scene again, the way that we went from 39 to 40. I mean, not in the middle of a conversation necessarily, but it does feel like it's going to be a continuation. I don't have confirmation on that. However, the biggest twist in this entire passage that I've been speculating, even though I constantly slap my own hand to speculate. Made me look like a fool, and this is why we don't speculate. How many times have I said that? One sentence here made how many episodes of Chapter 40 look foolish on my part? Here's the sentence. They had long since passed to dessert and cigars. This entire time they've been eating breakfast, and I've been waiting for them to start eating breakfast. How foolish do I look? I could have been asking less about what they're having for breakfast and more what they're having for dessert. I mean, I could have gone into my whole strudel content, like a French Pop-Tart. Do you know how many French pastries there are that I could have gone into? Croissants, macarons, eclairs. Listen, I know I list a lot of foods on this show. I'm not going to do that today because we have more research that I got to give you. But I'm just like, do you know how upset I am that I could have been talking about millefuis and yet I'm not? Okay, let's wrap up the real mystery of why the Robin Buss translation is different than the one we're reading. Folks, the implications of the research I did are immense and something we need to keep in mind. Okay. In addition to there being a different chapter break between these two chapters, reading them showed me that there are more than any other chapter I've read so far in this book, crucial little details in how turns of phrases are translated. And they're so like individually inconsequential that it's hard to even pull an example from. And, you know, I could do it in my e-reader app here that I'm reading from to find the version from the anonymous translation, but I can't do that with my physical book because you can't do a search functionality on it. So there's a line that we talked about a couple episodes ago. Debray was making some joke about King Charles and et cetera, et cetera. That line is translated differently in both of these versions. So I found that to be interesting, which made me go to the front of the book, which of the Robin Buss Penguin Classics book, and I skipped over the notes on the text and the chronology and all that stuff because I didn't want to initially ruin the experience of reading the book for the first time with potential spoilers, etc. But I did think it was time to go and read a note on the text. And holy moly, this is why getting definitive editions of books is so important, but also just recontextualize everything for me. This gives like a history of the translations of Monte Cristo since its original publication being serialized, and talks about the different Italian and French and English translations. I mean, it was originally in French, but, you know, you had to compile it and put it into volumes and make changes that way. This talks about the abridgment stuff that we covered before, but specifically saying that whenever someone is translating something, and I would love to just go into like a deeper dive on the philosophy of translations in general, saying that whenever someone's translating something, they have a sort of either agenda or bias. And we talked about that with the abridgment stuff before, but what do I mean by that? The anonymous translation we are reading from 1846 approached this book as if it were like thrilling entertainment. And if you're going into it with that lens, and the note on the text goes much deeper into this, like talking about how the text is essentially either seen as entertainment for adults or literature for children. And that's an interesting kind of polarized scale to look on it, because it's omitting looking at it as literature for adults. It's stripping it of its literary qualities. And therefore, if you are translating this specifically just with an entertainment eye, you might leave nuances out of it. It goes into talking about how when this was translated in 1846, there was still debate over like the utility of psychology in novels. I mean, the novel itself wasn't an established art form the way that we understand it today. I mean, they existed and they were written, but like understanding it as like a true highly elevated art form rather than just passing entertainment was starting to emerge at this time. He talks about Dumas' style not necessarily being super unique, being a contributing factor to it being seen as just entertainment, comparing it to George Eliot, who had a difference of philosophy, saying literature should be written about normal people and finding truth about the human experience through the common folk, versus someone like Victor Hugo or Dumas or Balzac writing about exceptional people, which pushes people toward that kind of entertainment thing. But in doing so, you write the translation omitting a lot or changing a lot, even to small degrees, and it takes on a different patina, even subtly or even subconsciously. And that was the whole reason that Robin Buss did this new translation for the Penguin Classics version, because a translation of the entirety of Monte Cristo hadn't been done since 1910, I think it was, early 1900s. And Robin Buss did this in 1996. So that's a long time to go without a new translation that comes directly from the original texts, trying to capture Dumas' initial intention with the work. So what we are reading day in and day out, I'm not going to say is stripped of those nuances. We've seen them. Even if they are slightly different, I think it's still easy to read between the lines in our commentary and analysis we do every day. But there is a difference. And that, there are times where I'm like, do I really need to read both this daily on the show on air and read the book separately for my own? And this has kind of made me reinvest in like, oh yeah, there's no question that I need to read both. If I didn't, I wouldn't have caught that line early on. Remember when they're at the hotel and Franz catches the name of Monte Cristo for the first time? That was in Robin Buss's book. It was not in the translation we are reading. Why was that omitted? Was it with intention? Was it sloppy? I don't know. When I'm now, to bring this all back to chapter 40 here, looking at this conversation happening and seeing the subtle differences between what's going on in the Robin Buss translation versus what's going on in the anonymous translation, there is more attention to what is being communicated as opposed to making sure it's translated verbatim in the Robin Buss translation. He is trying to capture the vibe, for lack of a better term, of what it's like to be amongst these men in this parlor having a conversation. I'm not saying he modernizes it, but I think he is paying much, much, much closer attention to what Dumas intended and clearing the path for new readers to encounter it in a way that, as I said, isn't modernizing it, but also isn't rewriting what Dumas wrote. Whereas the translation we're reading is capturing everything that's being said, but there is something being lost in the kind of sometimes archaic turns of phrases or stilted way the translation sometimes brings things forth. Now, I'm not going to pat myself on the back here, but luckily, y'all got me. We all have each other in doing this commentary and being able to dissect those things, to ask what is really going on, what's really the story being told. And I think that kind of bridges the gap between this anonymous translation and something like Robin Buss's translation. Okay, folks, we did it. We completed chapter 40. Congratulations. Now that I'm done talking about breakfast, I am going to go get some dinner. So, until we start chapter 41, until then, Okay, goodbye. The Countdown of Monte Cristo is part of the Gruntwork Podcast Network. This show is produced, edited, and hosted by Landon Solano. The original text of The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. Theme song by Magic Solo. If you want to support the show and others like it, visit patreon.com/gruntworkpod. Thank you for listening. See you tomorrow.